step forward. I need you to put your hands where I can see them.
I'm standing in my own yard. What's the problem, officer?
We're looking for a suspect matching your description. I'm giving you a lawful command.
Yeah.
I don't have to explain anything to you.
Pause. Take a breath. Because what I'm about to tell you, it sounds impossible, but every word of it is true. Picture this. A quiet street in Charlotte, North Carolina. August heat hanging in the air like a wet blanket. The kind of afternoon where all you want to do is finish your yard work and get back inside to the air conditioning. And standing there in front of house number 712, wearing a green head wrap and an old college t-shirt, was Maya Rodriguez. She had a garden hose in her hand, water droplets catching the sunlight. She was watering the hydrangeas her mother planted 3 years ago, the ones that bloomed purple every summer. It was her day off. She had no idea that in less than 5 minutes, her entire world was about to change. Before we go any further, if you're watching this, I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button. Because stories like this, stories that need to be told, stories that make you think, stories that make you feel something real, this is what we do here, and I don't want you to miss what happens next. Trust me on this one. Now, where were we? Right. Maya Rodriguez, federal agent with the Defense Intelligence Agency. 12 years of service, top-level security clearance, the kind of person who analyzes threats to national security while most of us are sleeping. But on this particular afternoon, she wasn't thinking about classified briefings or international threats. She was thinking about whether she should order Thai food or pizza for dinner later. Simple, ordinary, human. That's when Officer Marcus Webb pulled up to the curb. Marcus Webb had been a cop for 6 years. Not a rookie, but not exactly Officer of the Year material either. He was the kind of cop who saw the job in black and white. You're either following orders or you're suspicious. You either comply immediately or you're hiding something. No gray areas, no nuance. Just his way or the wrong way. That morning, dispatch had sent out a call. They were looking for a woman wanted for credit card fraud. The description, and this is important, so listen carefully. The description was Latina woman, medium build. That's it. Not height, not age, not what she was wearing, not even which neighborhood she was last seen in. Just 2 details that could describe literally thousands of women in Charlotte. Webb took that worthless description and turned it into a mission. He drove through the neighborhoods like he was hunting. Every Latina woman became a potential suspect in his mind. Woman walking her dog? He slowed down, took a long look. Woman checking her mailbox? Suspicious. Woman loading groceries? Better keep an eye on her. He wasn't protecting anyone. He was profiling, and he didn't even realize it. Then he saw Maya, and in his mind, he had found his suspect. Let that sink in for a second. Maya was wearing a head wrap, house clothes, holding a garden hose, standing in her own front yard, committing the terrible crime of watering plants. Webb got out of his car, didn't call for backup, didn't check if there were any addresses connected to the suspect, didn't even radio dispatch to confirm details. He just saw a Latina woman and decided, this is her. Maya noticed him walking up. She turned off the water. The hose dripped onto the concrete. She wasn't worried at first. She thought maybe there was a problem in the neighborhood. Maybe someone needed directions. Maybe there was a traffic incident nearby. She had no idea what was about to happen. Step forward, Webb said. His voice was hard, commanding. I need you to put your hands where I can see them. Maya looked at him, confused. I'm standing in my own yard. What's the problem, officer? We're looking for a suspect matching your description. I'm giving you a lawful command. And right there, right in that moment, Maya knew. She knew this was going to go bad. Matching my description? Her voice stayed calm, but you could hear the edge creeping in. I'm out here in a head wrap and a t-shirt watering the lawn. Latina female, medium build, that's enough. Maya's training kicked in. 12 years working with hostile situations, terrorist communications, briefings with generals. She knew how to stay calm under pressure, but she also knew her rights. That's not a description. That's a category. Her voice was steady, controlled. Justify stopping me on my own property. Here's the thing that gets me every single time I think about this story. Every single time. Maya did everything right. She asked reasonable questions. She stayed calm. She didn't yell. She didn't run. She didn't do anything except exercise her constitutional rights. And to Officer Marcus Webb, that made her guilty. In his mind, innocent people just obey. They just do what they're told without question. The fact that Maya was asking questions, that proved she was hiding something. The fact that she was calm, that was arrogance. The fact that she knew her rights, that was suspicious. It was circular logic at its absolute worst. Questions proved guilt, and guilt justified the questions. Around and around and around. You're being uncooperative, Webb said. You need to follow instructions. Follow unlawful instructions. Maya's voice got quieter, colder. Identify yourself. Tell me what probable cause you have. I don't have to explain anything to you. And that's when Webb made his decision. He was going to arrest her, not because she committed a crime, not because there was evidence, but because she dared to question him. Because in his mind, this was about respect, about control, about making sure people knew who was in charge. Type "no way" in the comments if you think this officer was already wrong at this point. Maya tried one more time. Her voice was calm but firm. Officer, I'm a federal agent with the Defense Intelligence Agency. I can show you my credentials, or you can call a supervisor. I'm happy to stay right here while you verify my identity. Webb refused. In his mind, if Maya was really a federal agent, she would have said so immediately. The fact that she asked questions first, that meant she was lying. At least, that's what he told himself. The truth was simpler and uglier. Webb had already decided who Maya was before she ever opened her mouth. The description said, Latina woman. Maya was a Latina woman, and in his mind, that was enough. Everything she said after that was just noise. The argument lasted about 4 minutes. No screaming. But the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Maya wasn't afraid. She was angry. Angry that she had to justify her existence in her own yard. Angry that her federal credentials meant nothing to this man. Angry that no matter what she said, he had already made up his mind. Angry that she was being treated like a criminal while watering her dead mother's flowers. Then Webb reached for his handcuffs. Turn around, he said. Maya took a breath. Slow, steady. She turned around, put her hands behind her back. The metal was cold against her wrists. Click, click. That sound echoed across that quiet suburban street like a gunshot. And in that moment, Officer Marcus Webb had no idea he had just ended his career. Maya stood there, handcuffed, in her own front yard, wearing a head wrap and house clothes, while her neighbors started to come outside. An older man from across the street, Mr. Patterson, called out. Is everything okay over there? Webb told him to step back. Mrs. Chen, from 2 houses down, started recording on her phone. Webb saw her but didn't stop her. His jaw tightened, but he let it happen. A teenage boy on a bicycle stopped on the sidewalk, eyes wide, watching everything. Maya said nothing. She just stood there, letting it happen. Because she knew fighting back would only make it worse. She knew the statistics. She knew what happened to people of color who resisted unlawful arrests. She wasn't going to become another statistic. Webb walked her to the patrol car, opened the back door, put his hand on her head as he guided her into the back seat. The whole time, Maya was silent. She had said everything she needed to say. Now she would let the system do the talking. The back seat smelled like disinfectant and old sweat. The plastic was hard, uncomfortable. Maya sat perfectly still, staring straight ahead. But her mind? Her mind was racing, already working through what would happen next. The procedures, the protocols, the calls that would be made, the consequences that were about to rain down on this department like a hurricane. The drive to the station took 12 minutes. Webb didn't say a word. Maya didn't either. The radio crackled occasionally, other officers responding to other calls. The world kept turning like nothing unusual had happened. When they arrived at the station, Webb walked Maya inside like he had just caught a major criminal. His posture was proud, confident. He genuinely believed he had done good police work. Other officers glanced over but didn't think much of it. Just another arrest. another face to process, another person to book. The station was busy, people making bail, lawyers meeting clients, officers filing reports. Nobody paid special attention to the woman in the head wrap being walked to processing. Nobody knew they were watching a disaster unfold in real time. Maya was processed like any other arrestee. Fingerprints rolled across the digital scanner, photo taken against the height chart, personal belongings removed and cataloged, her phone, her house keys with a little hummingbird charm, her wallet with $83 and 4 credit cards, and then the items that mattered, her federal identification badge, photo, security clearance level clearly visible, her DIA access card with the embedded security chip, her service weapon permit. Officer Kevin Torres was doing the processing, 15-year veteran. He had processed thousands of people. He had seen every kind of fake ID imaginable. He knew what real federal credentials looked like. These were real. He looked at the badge, looked at Maya, looked at Webb. "Did you see these?" Torres asked, holding up the DIA badge. Webb glanced at them like they were nothing. "She mentioned something about being a federal agent. I think they're fake." Torres studied the badge more closely. The holographic elements, the microprinting, the weight, the texture. Nothing about these looked fake, nothing at all. He turned to his computer, pulled up a reference guide for federal credentials. Everything matched, every single detail. He looked at Webb again. Webb was still standing there with his arms crossed, still convinced he had done the right thing. Torres felt his stomach drop. He excused himself, walked directly to his supervisor's office. 5 minutes later, Captain Robert Diaz came down to the processing area, 30-year veteran. He had seen almost everything, but the look on Torres's face told him this was something different. Diaz looked at the credentials spread out on the desk, picked up the DIA badge, examined it under the light, looked at Maya, sitting calmly in the holding area, hands now uncuffed, posture perfect, expression unreadable. He looked at Webb, still standing there, still confident. Diaz felt his stomach drop to his shoes. He had been a captain long enough to recognize a career-ending disaster when he saw one. "Come with me," he said to Webb. It wasn't a request. Do you think the captain already knew this was about to be a disaster? Drop a comment below. In his office, Diaz closed the door, sat behind his desk, gestured for Webb to sit. "Explain to me," Diaz said slowly, "from the very beginning. Why did you arrest this woman?" Webb went through his reasoning like he was reading from a manual. Got a call about a suspect. Saw someone matching the description. Woman was uncooperative. Refused to comply with lawful orders. Claimed to be a federal agent but wouldn't show ID immediately. Had no choice but to make the arrest. Diaz listened to the whole thing without interrupting. His face gave nothing away. When Webb finished, he leaned back in his chair. "Did you ever ask for her name so you could run it through the system?" Webb paused. The confidence flickered, like a candle in the wind. He hadn't. He had been so certain, so convinced by his own assumptions, that he never did the basic police work that might have prevented this entire catastrophe. Diaz picked up his phone. Called the DIA field office. The conversation lasted less than 3 minutes. He identified himself, explained they had detained someone claiming to be a DIA officer, gave Maya's name. The voice on the other end went quiet, then asked if this was some kind of joke. Diaz said it wasn't. The voice asked where Maya Rodriguez was right now. Diaz said she was in the station. The voice, now loud enough that Webb could hear it from across the desk, wanted to know why a DIA officer was in a police station. Diaz explained about the arrest. The response was immediate and volcanic. The person demanded Maya be released immediately, that any charges be dropped, and that the special agent in charge would be calling the police chief within the hour. When Diaz hung up, his face had gone pale. His hands were shaking slightly. He told Webb to wait in his office, not to speak to anyone, not to go anywhere. Then he went back down to where Maya was being held. Maya was sitting in a plastic chair, hands folded in her lap, staring straight ahead like she was waiting for a bus. Diaz approached carefully. "Ma'am, I'm Captain Diaz. I want to apologize. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. You're free to go immediately." The words sounded hollow, even as he said them. He knew it. Maya knew it. "I can have someone drive you home," he offered. "No, thank you." Her voice was calm, but cold as ice. "I'll call someone to pick me up." "Of course, whatever you need." "I want copies of every single piece of documentation related to my arrest. Body cam footage, arrest report, booking report, any notes or communications about this incident, everything. In writing." Diaz agreed to everything. He didn't argue, didn't make excuses, didn't try to minimize what happened. He knew exactly how bad this was. Within an hour, Maya was out of the station. She called her supervisor, kept her voice even, professional, just stating facts. Her supervisor was silent for a long moment, then said he would handle it, told her to take the rest of the week off, document everything while it was fresh. By the end of that day, 3 phone calls had been made, one from the DIA to the police chief, one from the police chief to the mayor, one from the mayor to the city attorney. Every single person who heard the story had the same reaction. This is going to be a nightmare. The next morning, Officer Marcus Webb was placed on administrative leave, badge and weapons surrendered. Told not to discuss the case with anyone, sent home to wait. He left in shock, still believing he had done nothing wrong. In his mind, he was being punished for doing his job, thrown under the bus for political reasons. The investigation took 6 weeks. Internal Affairs interviewed Webb multiple times, reviewed the body cam footage frame by frame, pulled dispatch records, talked to neighbors, consulted with the city attorney, brought in an outside civil rights consultant. Every single finding pointed to the same conclusion. Webb had no probable cause to stop Maya, no probable cause to detain her, no probable cause to arrest her. The description was too vague to justify any of it. Maya had not committed any crime. She had not obstructed anything. She had simply asked questions, which is not illegal. She had asserted her rights, which is not illegal. She had requested a supervisor, which is not illegal. But the investigation found something else, something that made everything worse. Webb had a pattern. Over the previous 2 years, he had stopped and questioned Latino residents at a rate significantly higher than other officers with similar assignments. Most of those stops led nowhere. Several had resulted in complaints. All of those complaints had been dismissed, marked as unfounded. Nobody had looked at the pattern until now. Nobody had connected the dots. Webb had been allowed to continue operating with his biases unchecked. If you think this officer should have been stopped earlier, type facts below. Maya hired an attorney, a good one, the kind who specialized in federal civil rights cases and had a track record of winning, not because she needed the money, but because she wanted accountability. She wanted to make sure this didn't happen to someone else who didn't have her resources or knowledge. The lawsuit alleged racial profiling, unlawful arrest, violation of civil rights, and emotional distress. The filing was devastating. Time-stamped breakdowns of the body cam footage, witness statements from neighbors, Maya's credentials and service record, the pattern of complaints against Webb. It was a masterclass in legal documentation. The city attorney reviewed it and gave the mayor simple advice: settle fast, because if this went to trial, they would lose, and the verdict would be much more expensive than any settlement. Plus, the publicity would be devastating. A jury would see body cam footage of a federal agent being arrested in her own yard for watering plants while Latina. The verdict would be 7 figures, maybe 8. 3 months after the arrest, the city offered a settlement. The amount was never publicly disclosed, but people familiar with the negotiations said it was in the high 6 figures, close to $1 million, for an arrest that lasted less than 2 hours. Maya accepted. Part of the settlement required the police department to implement new training on racial bias. Maya personally reviewed the training materials before they were approved. She made sure they were substantive, not just window dressing. Officer Marcus Webb was fired. The department announced he had violated multiple policies and demonstrated a pattern of behavior inconsistent with their values. Webb tried to fight it, but his union representative told him the case was unwinnable. The body cam footage alone was enough to end his career. He eventually withdrew his appeal. Webb never worked in law enforcement again. He moved to another state, took a job in private security, watching cameras at a shopping mall. He told people he was forced out for political reasons. said he was a victim of the system protecting criminals. He never admitted he did anything wrong. He never acknowledged that his own biases destroyed his career. Maya returned to work at the DIA. Her colleagues knew what happened, but she didn't talk about it much. She had made her point. The system had responded. That was enough. She continued her career, moved up through the ranks. The arrest became a footnote in her personnel file. Notable only because of the lawsuit it generated, the police department changed some policies. Officers now needed specific articulable facts before making stops. Supervisors started reviewing body cam footage more regularly. Training on bias became mandatory every year. Dispatch procedures were updated to require more detailed suspect descriptions. But the real lesson from that day wasn't about policy or training. It was about assumptions. Officer Webb assumed he knew who Maya was the moment he saw her. He saw a Latina woman and decided that was enough. He never considered that the person standing in that yard might be someone who served her country at the highest levels. He never thought his assumptions might be wrong, and he paid the price for it. Final question. Do you think settlements like this actually change police behavior, or do we need stronger consequences? Let me know what you think in the comments. Maya's arrest lasted less than 2 hours, from handcuffs to release. But the consequences rippled out for years. The city paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. An officer lost his career. A federal agent was humiliated in her own yard for no reason other than the color of her skin and her ethnicity. And it all happened because one person with a badge decided that a vague description and his own biases were enough to justify an arrest. The body cam footage was never released to the public, part of the settlement agreement. But everyone involved in the case watched it, and everyone who watched it came away with the same thought. This should never have happened. It was avoidable at every single step. All Webb had to do was ask a few questions, run a name through the system, call for a supervisor, do basic police work. He did none of those things. House number 7112 still stands in that neighborhood in Charlotte. Maya lived there for 2 more years before transferring to a different duty station. The neighbors who watched her get arrested never forgot it. Some of them testified during the investigation. They all said the same thing. She was just watering her plants. She wasn't doing anything wrong. They couldn't understand why the officer was so aggressive. Several said they had seen Webb in the neighborhood before, always seeming to focus on certain residents more than others. That August afternoon, bright sunshine, body cam recording every second. Officer Marcus Webb made a choice. He chose to see a suspect instead of a person. He chose to ignore evidence that contradicted his assumptions. He chose to arrest instead of investigate. And that choice cost him everything. Maya Rodriguez went on with her life. She continued serving her country. She never spoke publicly about the arrest, but everyone who knows the story understands what it represents. It's a reminder that a badge doesn't make someone right, that authority without accountability is dangerous, and that sometimes the person you assume is a criminal is actually the one protecting you. The arrest lasted 2 hours. The lawsuit took months. The career consequences were permanent. And the lesson for anyone paying attention was crystal clear. Assumptions are not evidence. Bias is not probable cause. And when you put handcuffs on someone based on nothing but the color of their skin, their ethnicity, and your own prejudices, you better be ready for the consequences, because eventually, the truth comes out. The body cam doesn't lie. And justice, even when it's delayed, has a way of finding people who abuse their power. Thanks for watching this story all the way through. If you found this eye-opening, make sure you're subscribed, because I cover more stories like this that need to be told. Drop a comment letting me know what you think should happen in cases like these. See you in the next one.